Good afternoon and welcome to Grief on a Tuesday night 17. It's funny, I'm just listening to an advert. I won't say the name of the company, but they're home security in that industry. And it does make me laugh. They call the woman and she says, "Oh, I'm on the school run. I'm on the school run. There shouldn't be anybody there." And the guy says, "Oh, we're going to activate your zero visibility smoke screen." And my colleague's already phoned the police, and she says, she says, she says, "Right, I'll meet them there." And I'm thinking, our police force. I mean, our police force 6 months, a year ago, they don't turn up straight away for burglaries. They quite often don't turn up at all, and you just get an incident number. So the thought of the police turning up instantly for her is really, really amusing. The police doing it now. Not a chance. If they're not busy just following out their orders from the left wing Labour Party, then that's really it. They're not interested in burglaries and crime. They're interested in tweets and arresting people on the wrong side of the political divide as they're instructed. So yeah, that advert does make me laugh. Yeah, hopefully a little bit less of the Bob Fleming coffin this time. A little bit better. It's one of those where it really seems to be hanging around. I remember getting what I think was COVID about only a couple of months before sort of COVID hit. But I got ill, and it was one of these things where the cough was really, really bad, and it just sort of wouldn't shift. And I went into the doctors, which I absolutely hate going to the doctors. And he said, "You really don't look well. Have you taken time off work?" And I said, "No." I said, "But I cough constantly. I've passed out a couple of times because it's got so heavy and sort of come to a few seconds later and I'm on the floor or whatever." And he said, "You need to go to your boss. I'm going to write you a slip and you need to take a week off." And I was like, wow, I haven't done that in years and years and years. So I went in at the time. I think I was relatively new there in terms of I'd only been there like 18 months or whatever, but they were really good. It was only later on I'd find out what a bunch of cunts they were, but they were good at the time. And so I went home, and then a day later, probably not even a day late, not even 24 hours later, just seemed to get hit by this flu, just got really hot, couldn't move off the sofa, just couldn't move, struggled to even get up, let alone stand up. That carried on for about 48 hours. And then the symptoms that I'd had before just sort of carried on as well. There we go. And then it took about 5 to 6 weeks to properly clear. And when COVID came out, all the symptoms were the same. I did catch COVID twice, sort of officially, as in, being tested and finding out I got it. But all it really did was it took my maybe 50% of my sense of smell. Did smell and taste at the time completely, and then taste came back and smell was about sort of 50%. Second time round, had the symptoms, but felt like I'd got a bad cold, but nothing nowhere near as bad. But yeah, that was them. But this one's as I said, was courtesy of my lad's teacher at college. Who gave it to him, and he gave it to me, and had this for a good few weeks now. I seem to think sometimes I'm coming at the back end of it, and then it sort of comes back a bit. And talking of home security, very recently got a Ring doorbell. I must admit, I quite like them. I think I've got to adjust the settings slightly because sometimes the neighbours across the road will get in their car and it will sense motion or whatever. But it's pretty good. think I'll definitely get some sort of subscription out once the sort of free trial ends. I had to get one replacement from Amazon because the clip didn't work, so it was literally hanging on by the 2 clips at the top. So I had to get a replacement for that. But yeah, it's pretty good. We can keep an eye on the dog when we're not here. We actually caught her out nicking a remote control off the side, which we thought we put in a safe place, but clearly not. And found it sort of on the floor that she was next to. But yeah, so there we go. So straight on to football. We've had a few games since I last spoke. We had Spurs away, which resulted in a 2-1 win. Started really slowly, got caught out sort of messing about too slowly at the back. They were 1-0 up, nearly went 2 up. With it, had an offside goal, which was close, but we started really, really slowly, and then got back into it. Morgan Rogers, who's been pretty inconsistent, to be fair, scored an absolute belter of a goal. I still didn't think overall he actually played that well in the game, but he did score a cracking goal. And then the winner was basically a long ball from Matty Cash, who at the time was being instructed to play it back. And 9 times out of 10, in that situation, you thought it would have gone back to Emi Martinez to be dealt with from there. But he decides to sort of ping this ball over to the right-hand side. Luca Dean manages to bring it down and lay it back to Emi Buendia. He then takes it inside, and Spurs sort of back off enough that he can curl one with his left foot into the corner. And we end up winning the game 2-1. So it was a good response to a few people who thought, "Wow, we got the tougher run of games coming up now." So it was a good start to that. So yeah, a really good 3 points, and then on to the European game against Go Ahead Eagles in the Europa League. Would have loved to have gone, but we got very, very few tickets under 500. We weren't in those top few categories for those. They went to people who've been to basically every European away game over the last 3 years. Hello there, Bob Fleming. And yeah, a sort of reasonable start. Scored a scruffy goal, but we're 1-0 up. Had chances to make it 2. Some good chances as well. And then inexplicably seemed to just take our foot off the gas, like it was going to be a routine walkabout. And the one thing was, even though it was a crowd of sort of 10,000, they were really loud. They got behind them. And I think they sensed the longer it went on, they were getting back into it, and they were really getting behind them. They then scored from a free kick, which wasn't well dealt with. It took a deflection, but it was really poorly dealt with by us. So they go in level at half time, and then the crowd really start to get behind them. And then we don't show up second half at all. They prod in a second goal. The crowd are going absolutely ballistic. We're sort of creating half chances, but not anything of any great value. And then we get a penalty. So there's sort of 12 minutes left. And we've had massive problems with penalties over the last couple of years. At the time we were on, I think it was 7 out of 13 we'd missed, or 6 out of 13 or something. And Emi Buendia stepped up, and it seemed like a reasonable choice. He was in form. Other players had missed. And it was only afterwards that apparently Marlon, if he was on the pitch, was designated to take it, and he was. So why he didn't, I don't know. But Emi took it and unfortunately sauntered up and sent it into row 10, row 12 behind the goal. It was a real wet and windy night as well, so it would have seemed better to have sort of kept it a bit lower. And that was it. We lost 2-1. So we stayed on 6 points, 6 out of 9 after the 3 games in the Europa League. We've got a couple of home games now that we should definitely be looking at winning and picking up 6 points. No doubt about it. The Tel Aviv game, which that's another story. The Tel Aviv game, and then BSC Young Boys burn at home. So, we really should be looking at winning those two and sort of getting ourselves back on track. But we've, given ourselves a little bit of a roadblock and a bit of a reminder because we've done it before. We against teams I think we're going to stroll against, and we just don't, and we can't afford to stroll. Especially when we've changed the team up as we did. And then came into this weekend against Man City. I have to admit to being a little bit of a negative Nelly. They're in form. Haaland had scored 11 straight games. Donnarumma, the PSG keeper from last year, was sort of 3 or 4 clean sheets on a row, and they were in form. And after what had happened to us on Thursday, they'd had a couple of extra days since their European game to us. So it was looking like it was going to be tough. And we'd sort of said before, we need to be looking at the same sort of tactics we had at final, try and soak up some pressure and then start hitting them more, especially in the second half, take what they've got. And I think we did it really, really well. Obviously, this time we scored earlier on in the first half. Matty Cash just pinged one in with his left foot from a corner. But we've played really well. We let Haaland in once. He got through with a sort of one-on-one with Emi Martinez. Tried to sort of slide foot it round, and Martinez read it and saved it. But we didn't let them in too much. They didn't have a great deal. They do what they do a lot. They have a lot of the ball, but we were putting some good moves together too. So it wasn't like we were just sat back for the entire game. A couple of times we noted that we were very, very deep. Watkins was 20 yards back and everyone else was behind him from the halfway line. So, we did have moments where we were deep, but you expect that against the side of that quality. Obviously, when you spend that much money on it, you expect them to be a side of quality. And we did really well again in the second half. Put some decent moves together. We're under the cosh a little bit, but my word, did we put some bodies on the line? Amadou Onana probably had his best game for us. I won't go overboard about him yet because I think he's been quite disappointing for a £50 million record signing, but more of those performances, and he'll solidify a place in the team alongside Kamara without a doubt. He played really, really well, and some of the others, colossal performances. Matty Cash, obviously the goal, but his defending, some of his one-on-one stuff. Luca Dean, absolute fucking warrior. Took a couple of cracks to his ankle against Spurs. Didn't play on the Thursday, but initially I thought had been ruled out of this, but played. Absolutely, you'd want him in the trenches next to you. He was excellent. Contra Torres, brilliant clearance off the line. Kamara again, another sort of Rolls Royce performance. You almost expect that from him. He's going to be 8 out of 10 and sometimes more. John McGinn, absolutely superb. A little bit less going forward again. It wasn't a day for Ollie Watkins, really, or Morgan Rogers. It's getting better slowly. Definitely getting better slowly. But midfield and defensively. But a defensive all-round team effort. It was absolutely superb. And I thought, deservedly won. They really got him behind us sort of once. To be clear, they thought they'd scored, and it was offside. So 3 points against Man City was very, very, very welcome. Now we've got Liverpool away next week, which is always going to be tough. But they're in a slump at the moment. We're only a point behind them, and I think if we score first, their crowd are going to get agitated. But far be it from me to start thinking we're going to start doing really well there. We've got a pretty average record there. We have won some, but we like a lot of teams get beat well up there as well. So we'll have to see how it goes. But it could be an important start if we get a goal. I think they'll be moaning and groaning at them a little bit, and that's obviously going to work in our favour. So definitely on the up. The football's been football's been pretty good. It was a bit of bit stressful on the old ticker at the end of the Man City game, certainly the last 20 minutes. I wouldn't want to do too many of those, but yeah, so it's going much better after a bit of a poor start over those first sort of five games. And yeah, apart from that, don't think we've had any other albums out. We listened to a new Sabaton album the other day. That came out. That's more my son's directive rather than mine, but it's really good. Listened to it properly from start to finish the other day, and it's really good. He'd said a few people have been criticising it a bit, saying it was a bit weak, and it absolutely wasn't weak at all. It sort of ebbed and flowed. There was some fast and slow. And mid-pace tracks as well. To me, I listened to it and said, yeah, it's a solid 8. That's a real solid 8 out of 10 album. There's a lot to it. There's a lot of solos. There's slower atmospheric bits. There's heavier, fast double bass kick bits. I could go more deeper into it, but after hearing it once, that's a bit hard to do. But I'd certainly listen to it again. No problem at all. We're going to see them live a couple of times in December, once in this country and once in Denmark. Now, that week could be pretty epic because we get back on the Wednesday, and it's a big if, we can get tickets for Bâle away in the Europa League, we would have to fly out on first thing on a Thursday morning, which is the day of the game. We don't get back till the day before in the evening, sort of 5-6 o'clock. So we'd have to pretty much go straight down to London, to one of the airports down there to fly over first thing early on the Thursday. So we'd be over for match day and then just fly back. So it's, we like to have a little bit of time to go looking around places, but this one's going to be a bit more of an in and out job. But if we get the tickets and it's got to be done, we're going to have to do it. But we'll wait and see what happens on that one. And yeah, politically wise, this country just descends further and further into a parody of itself. It's embarrassing. Only yesterday, he's talking about an illegal migrant who'd been jailed in Epping, which had started a lot of the protests off there. He'd sexually assaulted a young girl. It's fucking vile. And he'd been sentenced to like a year or whatever it was, a year, 18 months, a lot less than people who put out hurty tweets. Again, just showing the pathetic nature of our judicial system that's clearly run by left-wing people and people behind in authority, obviously giving them directives that they're clearly part of. And then they've managed to, and I said this in inverted commas, accidentally release him. So an illegal immigrant who has sexually abused a 12-year-old girl was accidentally released from prison. He's got on a train to London, and surprise, surprise, they haven't found him, and he's got away. And yesterday, I saw the clips of this from, I don't know if it was Prime Minister's questions or just, I'm not sure, but someone was at the dispatch box, and David Lammy of the Labour Party, whilst they're talking about this case, which couldn't be any more serious, is just laughing his head off. He found it hilarious. And of course, people are up in arms about it. And I thought, you know what? The one thing is, I'm glad they've shown this because it shows what these fucking politicians think when it comes to matters of national security, when it comes to matters of protecting women and girls from fucking rapists. They just laugh. They're not interested. They couldn't give a shit. They couldn't give a shit about me, you, or anybody else, unless you're an illegal immigrant. And then obviously you're getting special treatment. It's all, we don't want to ruffle any feathers. If you've committed a crime, we'd rather not say. We'd rather keep it quiet. There's another, it just seems you'll only find the information out via social media. And people with cameras and are recording things, and then it'll be there's an incident here, and eventually it'll get reported because the BBC, none of these, Sky, they won't report it. They will not report any of these things. And there was multiple stabbings last night, and they've only just said this morning again it's another immigrant. But they won't do it. They don't want to ruffle any feathers. It's like Jess Phillips, got one of the most important jobs out there. The grooming gangs getting nowhere, getting chased up. What's going on? And then she gets angry with other people. She dismisses survivors who are telling their stories. What an obnoxious cunt she is. What a fucking awful human being. And I have to admit, certainly as a non-Labour person myself, but I actually thought with her, she's from the Midlands, and when you heard her talk, you actually thought, you know what, she's probably one of the nice ones. She'll be all right. She will, if nothing else, she will look after the people. She will look after her own. Oh, fuck me. What a massive, massive error that was. She's looking after her voters. That's who she's looking afterwards. And you don't need to be a fucking psychic to work out who the majority of the people in her constituency who vote for her are. And that's who she's protecting. She's an absolute fucking national disgrace, a fucking disgrace. And yet she gets away with it, like they all do. They all just fucking get away with it. And they sit there and laugh when it comes to a 12-year-old girl being raped by a fucking immigrant who's then released from prison accidentally. They laugh. That's what they think. And I probably reached this point a while ago, but when people come up with plans and marches and protests, and I think, do you know what? It was like when 3 million people or whatever it was signed that online petition about digital ID, and they just dismissed it. I knew they would straight away. They literally just dismissed it, and they said, we'll be going ahead with it. And my timeline over the last few days was flooded with Labour stuff about digital ID. Absolutely flooded. It's moved from, this would stop illegal immigration. Well, utter bollocks, obviously, but that's what they said. Then it was, and I spoke to someone who bought a house and couldn't find an electricity bill or something, and digital ID would have sorted this out. And it's moved 3 or 4 times to various different reasons why it should be brought in. They will dismiss you. They're being run by somebody else. I think that Tony Blair is behind a lot of what goes on still. And it's fucking frightening. That the vision they've got for this country is fucking frightening. They've just had I don't know whether it was a by-election or council, I'm not quite sure, in Wales. And it's a seat that Labour have held for 100 years. And they got fucking smashed. They got absolutely smashed. Now, Reform didn't win it, but they got 12,000 votes, which would be unheard of, before in that area. They're finished. The Labour Party have finished, but they're pushing ahead with all this stuff as if to say we've only got maybe 3 years to do this. We're going to get all this stuff through. There won't be anything of this fucking country left by the time Labour have finished with it. They're an absolute fucking shit show. And the things that they're getting away with as matters of national security and protection for people of this country. And all they do is side with the criminals, with the illegal immigrants. They just side with them. And if they do anything wrong, it's all hushed and it's kept quiet because, again, we don't want to ruffle any feathers, do we? It's an absolute fucking disgrace. This country is a shit show. The government is a shit show. The police force just follows on from the government directive. They're a shit show. So, yeah, don't fucking expect the police to turn up within 10 minutes at your house when there's been a burglary and meet them there and catch the burglar, like the advert says. Fuck me. That couldn't be any more fucking further from the truth. That advert should say, we've activated your smoke screen. That's fine. We've rung the police and they'll be in touch in about 3 weeks and they'll give you an incident number. That would have been the truth. That would have been a lot more believable. I don't even know where to go with it. This country's gone down the pan. It was poor under the Conservatives and the way they were doing things, but Labour have just they've taken it up 2 or 3 gears. They've added the shit and they've made it quicker, and fuck knows where it's heading. It's scary, and it's scary for the future. I just don't know where this is going. I really don't. But I fucking hate the Labour Party massively. I hate all politicians. They're self-serving scumbags. I think I've said that before, but fucking Labour, Jesus wept. I'm glad I can at least hold my hand up and say I didn't add to that problem. I certainly didn't vote for them, and never ever would. So there we go. A lot of football, a little bit of music, and a bit of politics. Sounds a bit like Ben Elton. If you're old enough to remember Ben Elton, then he used to say that, a little bit of politics, but he was a massive lefty as well, wasn't he? So there we go. I will be back with another one of these at some point. I'm glad today was a bit less coffee and spluttery. There was a few, but not too many. So a little bit better this time around. And yeah, I'm just sat here watching me Ring doorbell just so I can check out the front, make sure everything's tickety-boo, which it is. It's it's pretty good. It's just an ordinary Ring doorbell, and I think it was about 60 quid, and you got a second camera with it, which you can sort of stick right anywhere you want, really. We put it in the front room because it gives you a chance to check on the dog while you're out and just make sure she's behaving herself. But yeah, it's pretty good. I think it's a subscription $7.99 a month for 2 cameras once this finishes. So yeah, so there we go. Yeah, thank you so much for listening. Again, I look in amazement at some of the places that are coming up. You know, in Texas and Wisconsin and stuff like that. In Mexico, and I bloody love it. Thank you so much. And I'll speak to you all again soon. Take care. All the best. Bye.